Hey guys, welcome back to Startup Analytics. This is Abhinav. Today we will discuss what is supply chain and analytics corresponding to it. Now, when we talk supply chain, the fundamental question is what is it and why is it important? If you're someone who's ever bought a physical product or actually used a physical product of a supply chain, because supply chain is what is responsible for movement of these goods from the manufacturer to the retailer near your place so that you can actually purchase it or buy it. And in today's case, probably quick commerce, which delivers it to your home. Supply chain is movement of goods, but beyond that, it's also a reverse flow of information or feedback right from the end retailer, right? Who actually conveys the information about what products are selling fast, what are not selling fast enough, right? How was the movement of goods like? And this information is necessary or important so that the manufacturer or the owner of the entire product, right, who owns the selling of the product, they can accordingly manage the movement of the right amount of goods, which is very important, right? Because this information flow is important because you don't want a situation where you're either overproducing or moving more goods than needed, or the other way around where there's not enough stock available. What are the different components of a supply chain? So typically you have a manufacturer. This is the person who manufactures the goods, who owns the brand. Then you have this guy selling over something called distribution center. Now, this distribution center could be at different levels for different states, cities, right? Uh, and this is the guy. This is a place which typically procures, or this could also be owned by the manufacturer himself, where they have different distribution centers for different geographies. This distribution center then gives the products away to the wholesaler, who's responsible for buying products in cash from the manufacturer. Uh, he holds the inventory for the manufacturer. This could be bunch of different SKUs. He also be doing this for a different set of brands. Typically, this guy further gives these goods away to the retailers, uh, where he doesn't take cash for it, right? The cash is typically paid by the retailer once he makes a sale or he's able to sell it. This is how a typical supply chain process or a structure look like, primarily in Indian context, right? Different parts are involved, and typically wholesaler's job is to pay upfront to the manufacturer while he gives a cash credit to the retailers for them to allowing them to make that sale and then pay it back. Now, obviously, this given this setup, right? Uh, it's very important that each different part, right, is able to stock the right set of goods, or they're able to procure and move the right set of goods. In the case of, let's say, the wholesaler, right, he wants to ensure that he's housing the right sort of products so that he's able to service all his retailers, right? Similarly, the distribution center at that geographical level is also able to aggregate the demand of different wholesalers in that state or city. And then finally, at the manufacturer's level, right, they need to uh, correctly plan or at least be aware of how many goods they might be able to sell or need to plan for, right? Especially if there are certain activities, marketing initiatives, whatever they might end up doing, which could increase the awareness of the good, in which case they would want to pre-plan for it and probably try to stock slightly higher than usual. So why is all this process complex, right? Why is this whole supply chain complex? Uh, yeah, so it's complex because there are multiple steps involved, right? This is a movement of actual physical goods. Second, the feedback cycles are longer, right? Unlike pure digital business where, let's say, there's sudden growth in traffic, you can scale up your cloud and all. This is something that's kind of not possible with the supply chain, right? And also different geographies might have different challenges, right? Infrastructure might not be good enough, or it's very difficult to adjust or increase capacity in the supply chain, which is all makes it far more complex to run. So what's the difference between a new D2C versus old school supply chains? Now, D2C is this new concept where you have a brand which typically gets the product manufactured and then directly sells to the retailer, right? So in a way, they act as the distribution center plus the wholesaler plus the retailer, right? This works for certain sort of brands because it allows them a greater control over the brand, both in terms of marketing and how they want to move the goods, right? They do, or they would often rely on some other logistics players to actually move the goods, but this kind of vertical integration between the different components allows greater control and also higher margins, right? Because you basically are able to take over the entire you know margins across all the different levels, right? And yeah, you kind of flip the script, and wherein you are a brand who's driving the marketing, and at the same time also trying to ensure that you have sufficient goods and then moving them across. So what are the key metrics, right? And how do you measure? Why are these metrics important, right? So the metrics are important because you want to measure how good your supply chain is, right? And then later on you can try to improve it or make changes to it. So some of the areas are like, how frequently do you overstock? Like long does it take how long do you hold your inventory through your supply chain, right? Right from, let's say, manufacturing to finally when you make a sale, right? There's something called inventory days. How many days do you hold that product through your supply chain? One of the other parameters could be this is also this is function or a metric called lead time. This is the time taken between, let's say, you want to increase the stock or the inventory in your supply chain, right? Uh, how long does it take for you to actually make that happen and move those goods through your supply chain, right? So shorter the lead time, better it is. It's actually an indication of a robust supply chain. So if you're able to like really react very fast and reduce this time, then you actually have a very flexible and a robust supply chain, which thereby allows you to react to changing demands or making adjustments very fast. And also working capital, right? How much of now, obviously, to prevent an understock kind of situation, you can always want a lot more inventory than you need. But yeah, like this also means that you end up locking up a lot of capital in the as inventory, right? This is fine if you have a product which, let's say, has a long expiry cycles, you can hold it for long, but especially if it's something related to food item or edible items, right, which need to be consumed, you cannot, be holding a lot of inventory because they can also go spoiled or they can go bad. Besides, locking up your working capital, right? So that's some of the key metrics. Of course, this is just a synopsis or a very surface level understanding of it. But as you go a lot more deeper, you'll realize there are a lot of metrics that you can look into. And in fact, I would go ahead and say that some of these metrics will actually tell you a lot about the quality of the company, especially if it's a retail firm, right? Something like DMart, turns over the inventory like every 30 days compared to something like a Walmart, which takes 42 days, and Vishal Mega Mart, which takes something like 90 days, right? So you can actually tell the DMart is like 3 times more efficient in rotating goods through the supply chain. This is very important because if you're able to rotate or if you're able to move goods 3x times faster, you can also make, one third less margins. You can afford to make one third less margins because you're that efficiently using your fixed real estate to, move goods. And yeah, what kind of carriers do supply chain have, right? Yeah, so there's something called procurement analysis. These are the guys who buy goods from the manufacturers. This is from a typical supply chains point of view. Let's say you are a grocer or a retail player, you might have a procurement analyst who's responsible for buying certain sort of goods from different vendors, right? And making sure that you have stocking those goods, right? So they're optimizing across different vendors, timing, size, and things like that. Even negotiating deals, discounts, and things like that. Then you have roles like optimization, data scientists, right? So these are the guys, let's say, probably optimizing the network or how the goods move so that you are able to probably optimize for either speed or, cost, right? So that you're able to efficiently move the goods through your supply chain. Even despite all of that, you'll also have something called you'll have need for data analytics across the place because there are multiple touch points. So goods need to move from one place together. So you need to actually analyze this data properly, figure out, make small, short-term adjustments and all, right? And yeah, if you're a very large retailer, or even if you're running a large FMCG brand chain and all, you will need someone to at least forecast or have a forward-looking view on what kind of demand you might see, right? Which is where you have these forecasting engines or people involved in doing that stuff. So there's a lot of role for data across the board. And the way I see Gen AI and everything playing out, right? I expect a lot more emphasis on improving supply chain and all, simply because unlike pure digital businesses, supply chains are a little more trickier because you actually need to move goods on the ground. So they're not as fungible or as flexible as, let's say, a web-based app and all, which makes it both a positive and negative thing. Positive because unlike typical digital businesses, they're not disrupted by generative technology that easily, right? The hard part is obviously what you mentioned, which is it's a physical goods moment, right? So you need a lot of technology involvement, a lot of data collection across the process to like really improve and make things better. Uh, Again, like based on my experience, what I've seen is that while it's happening, again, this is one area I felt where there's a lot of potential to improve things a lot more, which is why I see a lot of opportunities for data roles here.